And welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, long-term health conditions, and neurodiversity in the British higher education system. I'm Kath, and this week I am joined by Martin. Martin is a man of many interests with an extensive academic record from a range of universities. I'm starting to think that he might just be the widest read guest that I have had on the show so far. So as a result, I'm super excited to have him on today. And without further ado, I think it's time to start. So, Martin, please can you introduce yourself and share a little about your background in higher education?
Sure. Hello, Kath, and thank you very much for having me on the show. I guess context is always really important. So I was born in Bromley in Kent, and I grew up in the Medway towns in Chatham specifically. Now, for those of you that don't know Southeast England or the Medway towns, I guess it's the closest thing we have in Kent to an industrial area. There used to be a dockyard there, a naval dockyard, and I remember as a child going to see the warships and going on submarines and all of those wonderful things. Kent is an interesting place because it has a very big grammar school system. So you have what I term educational apartheid in Kent. You either go to a grammar school by passing 11 plus, or you go to a state comprehensive, which is what I did. I'm dyslexic, so academically expectations were quite low for me at secondary school, and I didn't disappoint. So my academic journey has been quite an interesting one in the sense of I didn't graduate until I was 40 from the Open University, and that kind of experience, if you like, set in motion a string of events that meant I've been part-time studying for master's degrees for the last 20 odd years. So yes, thank you.
That is incredible. Yeah, I had a look at your LinkedIn. It was about 6 master's degrees or something.
Five.
That is impressive and incredible. So you've already touched on this, but if you're comfortable saying, how did your disability impact your experience of higher education?
Okay, so a really good example is I did my undergraduate with the Open University, and I did it in technology. And technology subjects, things like computer science and innovation and design, very kind of structured. They're very kind of straightforward in the sense that how you're studying is quite prescribed for you. So for me, that wasn't too bad. Exams have always been a massive problem for me because my memory or my short-term memory is really rubbish. So being able to study or revise for an exam is really, 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 really tough for me. So my first master's was at LSE in New Media, Information and Society. And the reason I did that is because my mum refused to use a computer. And by that time, I was 40 and I'd worked in technology for 20 years. And it used to drive me absolutely insane that she would refuse to use a computer. So I thought, where can I go to understand this concept of people rejecting technology? And I thought, well, LSE, that's got to be the place. So I applied. I got into LSE, much to my great surprise. I honestly didn't think I would. But good grief, the shock of actually going to a traditional university and the reading lists and the amount of sheer volume of stuff I had to read was just insane. And of course, it was social sciences, and I didn't have a social science background. So I was literally reading every other word I was looking up in a dictionary because I didn't know what it meant, so I really suffered in my first term. I have to admit, and I questioned my sanity as to why I was doing what I was doing. And I went to see my department manager and I said, "Look, this is really tough." And she said a couple of words to me. And at the time, it didn't feel very helpful, but she was absolutely right. She said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." and brushed it off. And when I was at LSE, I got my official diagnosis for dyslexia. I knew I was dyslexic because I'd been diagnosed when I was very young, which is very strange for back then, I was born in 1964. I'll be 61 this year, so dyslexia wasn't really a thing back then. But for whatever reason, I got tested, and so I knew I was dyslexic. And the thing that amazed me, or amazed me, it annoyed me really, is that when you go to university, you can get ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, all these tests done, and it's done for free. But at school, they're not done for free. And and you really need support when you're at school, not when, obviously you need it when you're at university. But I think having that understanding when you are in your formative school years would be far better than waiting until you get to university, when all of a sudden the floodgates of cash open up and the universities are happy to support you. So to your point, what happened at LSE? I got 25% extra time in my exams. I got what's called a disability student allowance, DSA.
Oh, DSA. The DSA, yes.
DSA, yes, got one of those. And interestingly, as time has gone by, they have got a lot less generous than they used to be. They bought me a laptop, they bought me software, a dictation machine, all sorts of stuff that I could get with the DSA. Which was wonderful.
Yeah, I got the dictation software as well. I didn't find it was fantastic personally, but it was nice that they offered it.
It was Dragon Dictate, I think, and it was pretty rubbish. But
I don't remember the name of the software, but it sounds like it might have been the same, mate. Yeah. I went to uni a lot more recently. Right. So I want to move on to kind of talk about access a little bit. Obviously, you said you've done 5 masters and the Open Uni. Feel free to mention whatever institutions you please. But what was your experience accessing higher education from a disability standpoint? And did you find that it really varied across the institutions that you studied at?
No, actually, they were all very good. Every university I went to, so I've been to LSE, UCL Imperial, Royal Holloway, Oxford and Cambridge. Every single university had a disability officer, and so it was just a case of when you apply, you declare that you've got this particular disability, and when you're accepted, then you start getting a flood of emails from these various people offering you the various support that they have for you. So in that sense, it's all been very joined up. I've never had a bad experience from all of those institutions accessing the help that I needed.
Oh, that's wonderful. If I am not slightly jealous, but it's really nice to hear a good story. That makes me really happy. Right, but let's focus a little more on the personal experience again while you were at uni. So during your time in higher education, have you experienced any obstacles? And did you overcome them? If so, how?
Yes, I guess even though your tutors are told that you have a disability, and these are the things that in a dyslexic person's the advice might be. It might sound disjointed. It might be a mess. It might not be written in the best possible way. But for a dyslexic person, understand is the key information there. So it's kind of that sort of thing. So what happened to me at Cambridge? One of my markers on one of my essays basically said this essay is incoherent, and so it's kind of like, okay, that's I mean, and of course that knocks your confidence, and so those obstacles don't particularly help, and I guess that might be it just might be that particular marker was having a particularly off day and hadn't read the information that would have come with my essay to say what he or she should be looking out for. But yeah, it certainly knocks your confidence for sure. So that resilience, being able to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and say, okay, I'll try better next time, is a good skill to have, I think.
Yes, definitely can be an acquired skill as well.
Yeah.
I know that, well, as someone who studied in Oxford, sometimes people just mark like that, but it's still, even if you know it's coming, it can still affect you quite significantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
absolutely.
Resilience is an acquired skill, and it's good to acquire it early.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, Moving to the extracurriculars, were there any clubs, societies, or initiatives that made a significant positive difference to your experience of higher education?
Yes, I was obviously fortunate enough to go to Oxford, and I was also very fortunate that I was part. I've been a part. All my degrees have been part time. Oxford and Cambridge, bizarrely, make it very easy for part-time students, whereas all of the other institutions do not. So LSE and Imperial, UCL, and Royal Holloway basically say, okay, you do the same degree as everyone else does, but you do it over 2 years. But you do it at the same time that the full-time students do it, right? So if you're not in control of your calendar, that makes life very, very, very difficult, because how many people can, get up from their office and go to a 2-hour lecture or a 1-hour seminar in London? I mean, I was fortunate that I was in the position that I was able to do that. So I'm very lucky. Oxford and Cambridge were very different. Most of our teaching was done at the weekends, and in Oxford, and at Cambridge, I would go up for 4 days once every term. So we would have 3 4-day sessions, which was also amazing. But the thing that I learned when I was at Oxford was I learned to row. Now, I come from a working class family. Rowing was not something that I ever thought I would ever get involved in. So being able to live in college, because I was co-president of our middle common room, which is like the graduate community, one of the privileges of that was that I could live in college. So I moved to Oxford for a year, and I lived in I lived in my college. So I thought, learn to row. So I did, and it was amazing, and I'm so glad I did it. It was absolutely fantastic. Getting up on a cold February morning at 5:30 to be at the boathouse for 6 is not fun, but you do look back with fond memories. And when you and I met at Summer 8, it was wonderful to see all of the colleges racing, bumping. So yes, that had an amazing impact on me.
Yes, for those who don't know, Summer 8 is the big annual Oxford rowing regatta. I briefly rowed for my college, only for 1 term, unfortunately. I had to stop due to injury. But one thing I will note, and I will call you out on, is you were not in your own college's boathouse when I met you.
No, I was not. The Cat's Boathouse is at the Gut, which is, for those of you that don't know Oxford, it's probably about a mile down the towpath. So it's quite a long walk, whereas Jesus College's boathouse is on the island, which is not so far.
Yeah, well, you know what? It worked out for this, didn't it? So I'm not. I don't think neither of us should be complaining. Cool. So, yeah, rowing's great. Next question. So I asked this question. I always get very different responses to this question. Sometimes people don't like it. Sometimes I get actually really interesting responses. But have you ever experienced any instances of your disability proving helpful in a higher education setting?
In higher education, but also in life in general, I think dyslexic people tend to be big picture. So we can see a really big picture. We're pretty rubbish at detail. Don't ask me to provide you with a really forensic breakdown of something that I'm not interested in, right? I can do it for things that I'm interested in, but I'm a big picture person, so I tend to be able to focus on that big picture, which really helps me kind of frame my ideas. Now, there are advantages to that and there's disadvantages to that. The main disadvantage of that is you never know when to stop, right? You're always kind of looking at a bigger picture, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, you've got to focus, right? So for me, that focus, not being able to focus quickly enough, has always been a problem. And I don't know if it's a dyslexic thing, but when you're writing essays, I did the history of design at Oxford, so it was all essay based. It's very easy to get into a doom loop of an essay crisis because you don't know where you're going. You've done a whole bunch of reading, and all of a sudden you realise it's a dead end, and you've got to start back again. So, but I think that's just academic life, really. I don't think that's particularly for someone like me. But yeah, but then you start to panic, especially as that deadline approaches.
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah. Right. Answer this question as best you can. I appreciate you've been in higher education a while,
Mm.
but if we think back to when you started from university, I guess at the
Mm.
OU, is there
Mm.
anything you wish you had known before you started?
Is there anything I wish I'd known before I started? I think, well, I tell you what, I didn't know before I went to a quote unquote traditional university was how the teaching styles differed. So for example, the OU the OU is the open university for those that are not in the UK, and the idea behind the open university was to allow people that didn't have the opportunity in their younger days to get a university education. But it's totally open, so there is no expectation of any knowledge of anything that you are going to study. So the OU is incredibly structured in terms of telling you as the student what it is you will be doing and how you should do it. Right. So you get a course book. It tells you exactly what's going to be expected of you, and it tells you, when you have to do certain things, when your assignments are due, so on and so forth. Right. So it's very, very structured. All right. When I went to LSE, that was my first traditional university, I was basically given a reading list and told where the library was. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a massive shock to the system. I was so used to having it to be blunt, being spoon fed, being told exactly what was expected of me, and then going to a traditional elite university and then there's the reading list, there's the library, off you go. Right. That was a shock, because all of those things that I was used to that would guide me through the process was no longer there. So yeah, that was a real shock.
Yeah, and I guess with the Open University, you also had a lot more freedom about where you worked as well,
Yes,
because yeah.
correct. Yes, yeah, yeah. And when,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, because I had another OU guest on recently, and they were like a different time. They were in the pandemic, and they were like, "Oh, nothing changed because we just studied online," whereas
Yep,
every other university in the country was going into
definitely. Yeah,
survival mode and meltdown. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is fine. Like
yeah.
nothing's changed." So I think the OU is wonderful.
Yes,
I always say the
it's a great
OU's
institution. I really love it. Yeah.
yeah, it is wonderful. So I have a question for you as someone who's obviously had you have such a diverse academic background. You have obviously such a diverse career background as well. You have, to put it bluntly, you have more master's degrees than anyone I've ever met.
Thank
And I
you.
really, really, really want to know what draws you to higher education.
I think the thing for me, so if I'm really, really honest, at school, when I was at secondary school, I knew I wasn't stupid, but I couldn't perform academically at all. So there was this incredible frustration that was coursing through my veins about, um, how stupid I felt, knowing that I wasn't stupid because I couldn't do the academic work in the way in which it was expected. Um, Now, obviously, as I've got older, and I got into my 30s, and I thought I really want to do a degree now. I think I'm ready for it, and the OU was the natural choice. So that's why I chose the OU, and it was a really great experience. It was really fulfilling. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I cancelled holidays because I had deadlines. I failed exams, so I had to do resits. It certainly wasn't a walk in the park, and it was 6 long years of part-time study. And I remember when I got into my third year, I think, crikey, I've only got another 3 years to go. And of course, if you're a full-time undergraduate, you're done in 3 years, right? So 6 years is a really, really long time. So that was tough. But why the other things? I mean, because I knew I wasn't stupid, I always had this ambition to go to an elite university. I'll be elitist. I'm not going to lie about it. So getting into LSE was number one. I was shocked because I honestly didn't think I would get in. So when they accepted me, I was like, oh crap, I've got to do this now, because I was fully expecting not to get in. After that real shock to the system of going to a traditional elite university with very high expectations of you, and you know the teaching is very, very different to what you get at the OU, and especially American students when they come to the UK to go to a university, it doesn't matter if it's an elite or not, they're quite shocked about, they're used to being told, again, almost a bit like the OU, being told exactly what is expected of them, what they have to do, when they have to do it, and this is what you do. So I remember standing in the corridor one day after I picked up the mark for one of my first essays I was done at LSE. And there was this American young lady crying in the corridor because she had gotten, I think she got a 59 for her first essay. And, in America, they're used to getting 99s, they're always in the 90s, and they don't really understand when you explain to an American system, actually everything's out of 70. If you're getting over 70, you're doing really well, and nobody gets 80.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen, So trying to explain that to people that aren't used to the English marking system is an interesting thing. But going back to your point about the about why. So number one, there was that desire to go to an elite university. So LSE kind of scratched that itch. But then I was interested in other fields. So at Imperial UCL, it was a joint degree. I did science, technology, medicine, and society. So that is a history and philosophy of science, technology, and medicine at HTSM. Why did I do that? I'm an engineer by background. My undergraduate degree was technology. I used to be very binary. LSE rewired my brain. So that I became a person that looked for nuances and not for wrong or right anymore. And what interested me in the history of science was science is quite a messy area. Nobody writes about their failures. They only write about their successes. Nobody writes a paper that says, yeah, I spent 2 years building on this experiment and it was a complete failure, right? So I was interested in that kind of notion of the messiness of science. So it was it was history, philosophy, and sociology, social construction of technology discipline. So very interdisciplinary in that sense. It was history, philosophy, and sociology. So that was why I went to Imperial. By accident, an email dropped into my inbox about the history of design, which is what I studied at Oxford. And as part of my undergraduate degree, I'd done innovation and design. So I was really interested in design as a process. And having done a history degree at Imperial stroke UCL, I thought, right, that's interesting. I mean, apart from what God created, nature, everything is a designed object. So I thought, right, I'll apply to Oxford, and I was again fortunate enough to get in. And then why did I go to Royal Holloway? Royal Holloway was the first university in the world, it still dines out on this, that created a master's in information security or cyber security. So I work in technology, IT. So I thought I should vaguely do something that's related to what I do for a living. So I decided to do that particular master's, which again was interesting. And my final master's at Cambridge, when I was at Oxford, I wanted to write 2 dissertations. You can only write one. I wrote about an Oriental Turkish bath that was built by a very interesting person called David Urquhart in Jermyn Street in London. And it was an amazing place. He was a social reformer. He thought men from different social backgrounds mixing together in an environment where you don't have the social signifiers of class would be a good thing. So hence Turkish bath. Men have towels around their bodies, so you don't know, you can't tell where somebody's from or what they do. But I also was really interested in the utilitarian bath and wash house movement. So this was the mid 19th century, 1850s. London was an industrial city. It was an awful place to live and work, especially if you were poor. There was nowhere to wash your clothes, wash your body. It was truly awful place. And again, there was this movement to create bath and wash houses, and Queen Victoria and Prince Albert donated to a fund to build the model establishment in Whitechapel. So I wanted to write that dissertation too. So I thought, I wonder if Cambridge has a similar degree to the one I did at Oxford, and they did. So I applied there, and that's why I did my final master's there, just in pure history. So yeah, there's a story to all of them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you think you'll be drawn back in the future? Are
I
you
think
seeing what the
so.
future
Yes,
holds?
yes, I think so. I'm really interested in inequality, and LSE has a master's degree in inequality, which I applied to and got accepted. I've deferred it because it's quite expensive. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to think long and hard. But yes, it's. I think there will always be a place in my heart for studying, because one of the things I've discovered about learning is that the more you learn, you realize that the less you know. Right? It's a very strange paradox that you just realize how much you don't know when you study a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely not the first time I've heard that saying. I think a lot of people realize it probably when they first enter uni. They're like, "Oh, I know everything," and
Yeah,
then you hear what people are doing and like the total like breadth of
yeah.
study, right? And they're like, "Oh, wow, I know nothing about this."
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. No.
it,
Exactly. It's yeah. A nice problem to have, I think. But yeah.
it is the curse of knowledge.
Yes.
You realize you know effectively nothing, but what you do
Yeah.
know is usually quite cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Just for a second, I want to zoom out to some bigger picture stuff and kind of talk about higher education as a whole.
Mhm.
So, how do you think that we can improve the experience of higher education as both individuals and a society?
As individuals, if I focus in on, if I take the OU as one model where everything is designed around you knowing nothing about anything, and it's designed to get you to the level where you need to be, that is a really good model. And I quite, for the life of me, I don't quite understand why other universities don't adopt that model. So that it is clear what is expected of you when you start on a particular module or a particular course that you're doing. Um, as I said about the LSE, here's a reading list, there's the library. That was a profound shock to me, and it was even worse because this was 20 years ago, and back then we used to have to organise. Photocopying rounds, because the books that we would need were in course collect. So you would find out which books you needed for a particular week reading a few days before, well, maybe a week before you needed to read those papers, and then somebody had to go into the course collect area of the library, find the book, photocopy the pages that you needed for that particular reading multiple times, and give it to your colleagues. Now, I was in the media and communications department, and for the core course, there was 150 people on that master's program. There was about 5 or 6 different master's degrees, but we all did a particular core course. And so there was 150 people that needed printouts or needed photocopies of a particular chapter in a particular book, and in course collect there was like 3 books. So that's just nonsense, right? That's just
Yeah.
crazy. That's just making life. Now that was 20 years ago. I would sincerely hope that things have changed in the scheme of things, so that either these books are now available online. I know quite a lot of books that are published now, are academic books, are also available online. So if you've got access to your university login, for your library, you can probably call them up electronically. So hopefully that problem has gone away. But from a societal point of view, I think education is a wonderful thing, but there are points in your life when it might make sense for you. I've been incredibly lucky in the sense that I was able to build a career without having a degree. It wasn't an important thing when I started out in my career. I think 7% of people went to university. I left school in 1980, and I think in 1980 people, only about 7% of the population went to university. So to have a university degree in my early career was the exception, not the rule. So now there is a big push to get people into degree programs or get to go to university. I don't have a problem with that. What I do kind of have a problem with is that it's now almost, unless you go to a Russell University, what's the point is kind of what a lot of people say to me. And if I'm completely honest, I believe that all of our universities work very well in the UK, regardless of their ranking in particular tables. I think they do a really good job. So what I would hope is that organizations, and I work for PwC, and we have degree apprenticeships. Now, it sounds a strange thing. A degree apprenticeship for us is you go to university at the same time you would normally go to university. So it's not like you're doing 2 days in the office, 3 days at university. So you do your normal turn times. You have a year sandwich year where you work in the business, and you work at PwC during the holidays and so on and so forth. In the technology area that I work in, that degree is not only fully funded, but you get a salary of £25,000. So I'd like to see organizations, big organizations, do more of that. And there is still this snobbery around university and the types of courses that people do. I love education for education's sake. So I would hope that people would follow their passions, because if they really love something, they're going to be really good at it. But I know in different cultures, there's, Asian cultures tend to push people towards dentistry, medicine, engineering, and you're not so much into the humanities. And as I say, from my brain being rewired from my experience of LSE, it's probably the best thing I ever did when I now look at who I am as an individual and who I was back then.
Yeah. I think that's a really good answer. First of all, I want to reassure you that I never had to photocopy a textbook when I was at uni. It might have something to do that my second year was slap bang in the middle of COVID, but maybe a COVID keep is that everything was digitized.
Yeah.
I hope that it was also okay before that. I think it was okay. I think it was there.
Yeah, I mean, this was a long time ago. I mean, obviously, when I was at Oxford, everything I needed was on close stacks, and it's such a privilege being able to pull that stuff up. But even so, quite a lot of that is also online. I can access it from a website called archive.org, which has worked with Microsoft and Google to digitize out of copyright books. So access now is far easier than it would have been even 20 years ago. Being able to call up those books that might only be available in a very few libraries in the whole of the country now is amazing.
Yeah, another one is Project Gutenberg, because they're doing a big project as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Penultimate question. We're nearly there. So. You have alluded to this already, but what are you doing nowadays, and how have your past experiences kind of affected this?
Well, I work as an IT project manager for PwC in our cloud, digital and data practice. I've not really changed all of the education I've done has been wonderful, but I've not been able to stop what I'm doing. I guess I'm trapped by what I earn. When you get to a certain level in your career and you earn a certain amount of money, I would love to stop doing what I'm doing and do something completely different, but I simply can't afford to. Right, so that's one of the disadvantages of having so much education, is that I would love to do perhaps do something a bit different, but I couldn't afford to live on half the salary that I now currently earn. So.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Right. We have covered a lot this episode, from a lot of different universities, from a lot of different courses. If we were going to take all of that and condense it into one thing, what is the key takeaway you would want listeners to remember from your story?
I think the key takeaway is that we, as individuals, we are our own worst enemy. So if you have a dream to go to a particular university or to study a particular thing, don't talk yourself out of it. You know, don't. You're not going to get into Oxford if you don't apply. You're not going to get into
Yeah.
Cambridge if you don't apply. Right. So you know, don't defeat yourself. Trust your instincts. And what have you got to lose? Right. You might not get in, but you'll never know that unless you apply.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the barriers have come down now because universities have removed their application fee, some of them. I'm
Oh,
looking at
fantastic.
Oxford. I think it's been removed now. So I think the financial barrier is also going or gone,
Good.
hopefully. Which,
That's really good. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully will let people do what they want to do.
Mm.
Right, Martin, that is the end of my questions. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
Cool. I'm going to do my bit now and then you'll be free to go. So, HE Enabled is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, long-term health conditions, and neurodiversity in the British higher education system. If you ever want to come on, my inbox is open. You can email at heenabled@gmail.com. Cool. Martin, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kath, and speak soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, speak soon.